Imagine if you created one of the most legendary gaming franchises ever, after years of honing your craft while revolutionizing the gaming industry with success after success, after captivating fans all over the world and reaching the pinnacle of the gaming world, you suddenly lose it all. Despite all the triumphs in the past, you were awarded by having your names removed from the very series you propelled to the skies, while being blacklisted and shunned from the very company you helped ascend to new heights. Years and years of work, countless long days of isolation, all the time spent away from friends, family, and loved ones, all to release the best game possible. But now, your name, now hidden, erased from the future of the very series you labored so hard to make. This is the story of Metal Gear, the story of why Metal Gear will always be a Hideo Kojima game. With Metal Gear Solid 3 Delta being announced, a remake of perhaps the most beloved game in the series, I want to go over a really important set of events that all fans should know of regarding the series and its creator. The story of how the original creators got shafted from their own game. First and foremost, Metal Gear will always be a Hideo Kojima game. Kojima and his brilliant team in Kojima Productions should always be mentioned when talking about the rise and fall of one of the most prominent gaming franchises ever. And with this video you will better understand why. Before that, for those who don't know much about the series, Metal Gear is one of the highest acclaimed gaming franchises ever. It is a pioneer for the stealth action genre, or tactical espionage action as the series often puts it as. The series stars various characters, with most of the main ones having the codename Snake, signifying them to be a legendary war hero through blood, genetics, as well as accolades. Playing as Snake, you are oftentimes tasked to infiltrate and take down massive threats to humanity, whether that be walking bipedal nuclear weapons, mad warmongering monsters, or close allies, friends, mentors, and on the rare occasion, even another legend who carries the notorious name of Snake. The story of the series is incredibly intricate and quite profound. When you think of exceptional storytelling in gaming with deep plots, the Metal Gear Solid franchise comes to mind. The series contained a rich cast of characters as well as a diverse set of deep themes. The various Metal Gears had industry-innovating gameplay, beautiful music, heart-wrenching moments, and so much more. All of this led the series to be one of the highest acclaimed franchises ever. True masterpieces in its genre if there ever was one. While I won't chronicle the rise of Metal Gear or the countless reasons why it is one of my favorite gaming series ever, maybe I will explore that in another video. This video is more so meant to talk about the fall of the series and the controversy in regards to its original creators, as well as the future. This is the story of Hideo Kojima, the story of all the brilliant members of Kojima Productions, and the fall of Metal Gear, their enclosure, their exodus, and their erasure. For the new fans who don't know, Hideo Kojima is the man behind the series' rise to prominence, along with his incredibly talented staff in Kojima Productions. Hideo Kojima was in charge of the first Metal Gear and worked on most installments after it, including Metal Gear 2 Solid Snake, Metal Gear Solid, Metal Gear Solid 2 Sons of Liberty, Metal Gear Solid 3 Snake Eater, Metal Gear Solid 4 Guns of the Patriots, Metal Gear Solid 5 Ground Zeroes, and Metal Gear Solid 5 The Phantom Pain. He also had a part to play in the release of Metal Gear games like Metal Gear Solid Peace Walker and Metal Gear Rising Revengeance. Kojima and his team were behind most of the mainstay Metal Gears, except for games in which they had no part of, like the travesty that was Survive and a few other installments. The two sides of Kojima Productions and Konami would butt heads, and this would lead to Kojima getting fired and forming his own company to create Death Stranding. However, after years of work and monumental success on perhaps one of the most respected franchises of all time in Metal Gear, Kojima did not get the ownership of the series he elevated to such a high position. The series was owned by the publisher Konami, with Kojima Productions being the developer team working under Konami. Metal Gear will stay with Konami, who would continue the series and abysmally fail with creating Metal Gear Solid Survive, as well as making Metal Gear a glorified pachinko game. Now, Konami is looking to bring back life into the franchise by remaking the highest acclaimed Metal Gear game by most fans, but whether it will live up to the expectations, only time will tell. Before we go any further, let's try to understand what went wrong. First off, I don't claim to know every small detail of what happened. Most of the details are probably only known by Kojima, Konami, and the staff at Kojima Productions, but through the information that we have, I will try to paint a picture to best represent what happened. For a long time, Metal Gear was Konami's most popular series. The Metal Gear games were incredibly deep and complex, and to make such a game required a lot of time, energy, and resources. Eventually, Konami decided to restructure the company's focus and cut down on their big emphasis on console-geared games, with their new focus being mobile games like Dragon Collection. Dragon Collection and other mobile games required very little time, energy, and resources, especially compared to AAA games like Metal Gear, and they went on to be very successful. In short, concentrating on mobile-focused, microtransaction games was more profitable for Konami. Although Kojima and Konami may have very well been butting heads for some time before, this is what is widely known as the turning point between the two sides. Now, you may think that all of this isn't a big problem itself for a business, and you're probably right, but see, it was the execution of things that made all of this feel like a bitter betrayal, and all of that culminated to the bitter end of Kojima's time in Konami. After a massive corporate restructuring, Konami had begun to remove Kojima's name from his games, which is something he has always included, and his responsibilities were also lessened. Kojima was demoted from his high-ranking position. His name was removed from Metal Gear Solid 5, and even his studio of Kojima Productions Los Angeles was changed to Konami Los Angeles Studio. What went on was a long set of micromanagement and the stripping of freedom within the company. Many old staff members were let go. The employees were now reduced to contractors, and Kojima himself was micromanaged to a point where you would think that they were working in a sweatshop. Okay, maybe not, but to list the things that supposedly happened is not good in this day and age. Kojima was supposedly locked in a separate room, unable to even work alongside his team members. Some sources would go on to say that Konami treats its staff like prisoners, with some examples being the constant surveillance of the employees, publicly shaming employees for taking longer breaks, and even punishing employees for liking any anti-Konami posts on social media. There goes my chances of ever working with Konami, I guess. This sort of paints a picture of the type of management and culture Konami has. Any sort of negative feedback can be incredibly beneficial in the growth of a company and individual if integrated correctly, but to have an autocratic view of things, censoring and putting aside any sort of criticism, is like throwing away opportunities for improvement, all of which can easily equate to more profits. Furthermore, having a strict prison-like management style, cutting down basic freedoms is not the best thing to have when you want to flourish in creativity and art. So it would make sense why game developers will come into conflict when this is their management. Anyways, the tale continues on as in December 3rd, 2015, Metal Gear Solid 5 The Phantom Pain won the Best Action/Adventure Game Award at the Game Awards. But Kojima was not able to travel to the ceremony to accept the trophy because of his ongoing legal struggles with Konami. To add to this, the game was largely considered to be unfinished because of the internal conflict between the production team and Konami, and I'm sure you can see why. In short, tensions would flare from both sides as Kojima and his team would value creating the best product that they can. They would be willing to spend more time, energy, and resources to put out the best game that they can. This would lead to delays, more manpower being used, and more money being spent. But in the end, a masterpiece level of art was presented to the world, and it made a lot of money. However, Konami was more focused on the business aspect of things, and wanted to shorten the production time, cost, and the number of workers needed. They wouldn't hesitate to release games before they were finished, and even mistreat their employees to squeeze out every ounce of productivity to drive up profits. All in all, it was the disrespect and mistreatment of their employees, especially an icon of the video game world in Hideo Kojima, that led to the fall of Metal Gear as we know it, as well as a corporate restructuring geared towards mobile games. Kojima would eventually get fired by Konami, the supposed reason being he was spending too much money and delaying the release of The Phantom Pain. As one can imagine, at this time, Kojima was distraught. He reached the zenith of the gaming world after countless years and was left with nothing. I was creating games for 30 years, but I had nothing to start with. No office, no staff, no materials or things to work on, no machines. These were the words of Kojima after he was left stranding, after ascending the skies and being sent back to Ground Zero. You can say he must have felt the phantom pain of not being able to do what he always has up to this point, what he was meant to do in creating games. However, shortly after, Kojima will start up his own studio named Kojima Productions, as his fame and connections allowed him to do so. So at the end of the day, the 30 years did not go to waste. The who knows how many years of turmoil under Konami was not for nothing. All of this was needed for him to start his own company, independent from Konami. However, as mentioned earlier, it was Metal Gear that stayed with Konami. But if anything, all these events show us that Kojima Productions are not just Metal Gear. Like a phoenix brought down and burned to ashes, the studio rises once again with new life. Kojima Productions now creates new games and has a bright future ahead. It will be hard to top such a beloved franchise in Metal Gear, but there is new life being breathed into Kojima Productions, and that alone is something we should be thankful for. Now, which side was right, Konami or Kojima? There are two sides to this scenario, one with profit in mind and the other with releasing the best product. There is no right answer as it is just my opinion, but I will explore both sides regardless. When talking about this topic on other platforms, I was surprised how many gaming fans were for Konami's decision, with some fans going as far as to hate on Kojima for apparently wasting Konami's time and money. As a gaming fan, this has to be the worst opinion I have heard. From what I have read, Kojima was let go because he spent a lot of time trying to perfect the game. Kojima Productions certainly have a track record for it, as they have launched masterpiece after masterpiece. I don't know exactly what happened behind the scenes, but if that was the case, all gaming fans should be happy to have a developer and developer team spending so much time and energy to create the best game possible. That is exactly what game developers should do. This is what gives us legendary games like the Metal Gear series. The fact that a few fans cry about time and money being wasted is alarming. Like, unless you are some corporate shareholder, I don't see why any average person would care. As gaming fans, we should appreciate the developers that go such far lengths to perfect their work and launch the best game possible rather than pushing out something quick and cheap. I thought this was common sense, but it seems like there are people who are going to hate no matter what. As gaming fans, we should do whatever we can to support such studios, to support the dying breed of people looking to put out the best thing that they can, rather than just grabbing your cash, and not just in games but everything in general. As for Konami's point of view, the company was easily making millions from mobile games, but AAA console games like Metal Gear took years and millions of dollars to make. From a business perspective, looking at purely generating cash, it made all the sense in the world to focus on the mobile market. But it was a travesty for console gaming fans. Kojima spent a lot of money to create the Metal Gear series. As for the mobile games, they didn't cost anywhere near the Metal Gear games. That is not something we can argue. The mobile gaming route was a more efficient and effective way to generate profits. When solely looking at profits, you can understand the move, but the blurred line is, when do you stop caring about your business's actual values and services over money? Are profits the only important thing? Especially over creating the best games possible? Well, that was likely the dilemma at the time, and the way things turned out, it was profits that was more important for Konami. Hence Kojima getting demoted, micromanaged, locked away, erased, and then fired. Again, I understand where Konami was coming from. From a business perspective, it makes sense. But as a gaming fan, as someone who appreciates art, and someone who highly respects putting in your all in everything you do, I cannot agree with their decision. Gaming is just one of the many mediums you can use to express intricate stories, beautiful experiences, and inspire millions around the world. And the Metal Gear series did that. That is something the mobile games can never hold a candle to, especially the cheap and easy pay-to-win type of games. Whether the function of a business is to generate as much profits as possible or to release the best product or service, you may have your opinions, but I still believe it should be the latter. Then again, this idealistic perspective is that of a gaming fan, a Metal Gear mark. I can't possibly make such a decision over the actual organization, especially since I have never owned a business, so this was not meant to be me dishing out advice, just me sharing my thoughts. If the company decided to go the mobile route and stop console gaming, I can understand them severing ties. But what exactly is happening now? It seems like Konami wants in again in the console market, and the ways that they severed ties years ago is not something that I can stand for. Taking everything mentioned earlier into account, You may wonder what exactly is Konami's motive when releasing the new Metal Gear remakes and remasters. Well, I will let you speculate that. With both sides covered, let's go back to the release of the Metal Gear Solid 3 remake. Metal Gear Solid 3 Delta will feel empty knowing that the man Kojima himself and his brilliant team is not behind it. Now, I'm not saying to boycott Konami and don't buy this game. That is not what this video is about. What I wanted to do was bring some respect to Hideo Kojima and his team, as without them none of this would have been possible. Support his work and his studio as well. And if you love Metal Gear like me, I hope we all can enjoy some more of it. As a massive Metal Gear fan, I'll probably buy anything Metal Gear related as long as it is good and lives up to the franchise's past. And so by all means, go ahead and enjoy Delta, a remake of one of my favorite games ever. But throughout it all, remember that this will always be a Hideo Kojima game. With the Fallout explored, there were a few more things I wanted to talk about, one of which is how Kojima may have been secretly telling us what was happening behind the scenes between Konami. Another topic I wanted to bring up is why every Metal Gear had the creator's name plastered all over the game. Metal Gear has always been memed because a Hideo Kojima game has always been displayed everywhere, like always, way too many times. Many fans would make jokes about this, but as time would tell, there was a good reason for this. Now, I don't know the exact reason since I'm not Kojima himself, so this is all speculation. As the creator of the series, Kojima would butt heads with the publisher company Konami, and it was as if him plastering his name everywhere was him telling us beforehand in his own secret way that issues may arise. As mentioned earlier, during the last few years of working with Konami, the company was shifting away from publishing AAA titles like Metal Gear Solid, and with tensions heightened between Kojima and Konami, it was as if they were slowly removing his name, erasing him from the company and even his own games. In Metal Gear Solid 5 Ground Zeroes, a very important and cryptic message can be found through one of the missions. Throughout the playing area, the logos of the previous Metal Gear games can be found, and when shining a blue light on them, the logo of the games will disappear. However, only the logos of the games that Kojima had a part to play in would disappear. For the games he had no part in, Kaz would tell Snake that nothing happened, looks like nothing special. But every time you shine the light on a game Kojima was a part of, the logo would disappear. Once erasing them, Kaz would say, "You might be able to erase the markings, but the memories will never disappear." This in a sense was what was happening to Kojima and his team, and this very mission could have been his subtle way of letting us know. As Kojima was having his name removed from the box art and the relationship between both sides was getting worse, this mission remains as a possible cryptic metaphor for what Konami was trying to do with Kojima. It was as if Konami was doing whatever they can to erase Kojima and his team from the Metal Gear Solid games. I feel that is what this mission was trying to tell us in its own subtle way. Now, back to the earlier question, why did Kojima have his name plastered everywhere he could? Well, it could have very well been a precaution from Kojima, based on everything I mentioned earlier. Maybe he knew all of this would eventually happen, and he wanted to make sure we all knew who made the games, so we won't forget once his name gets erased. When Kojima was fired, it was his reputation that helped him get back on his feet. As sad as it may sound, if no one knew Kojima and he didn't promote his name and work so much, no one would have cared what happened to him. And so this all worked for the better. If Kojima instead replaced a Hideo Kojima game with a Konami game and hid from the spotlight, then it would have undoubtedly worsened his career, especially after the bitter breakup. With the future of Metal Gear, Konami may have been able to remove Kojima's name from the upcoming games, but they can't remove it from the already published games. And so, Kojima made it real hard to play Metal Gear without knowing that this series will always be a Hideo Kojima game. It was as if this was a massive subtle FU from Kojima, and if so, I wouldn't be surprised if the madman who created the legendary franchise could have predicted this would happen, or it could have been a big coincidence. Regardless, things did work out for the better. At the end of the mission I mentioned earlier, after erasing all the Kojima game logos, Kaz would say it the best.
You did it. You erased all the markings, but every one of them will always be with you. You seem to be a fan of Hideo Kojima games. Thank you for all your support.
You did it. You erased all the markings, but every one of them will always be with you. You might be able to erase the markings, the names tied to a series. You may be able to remove a name hundreds and thousands of times, but you cannot erase the memories it gave you and the impact it had on you. You can't erase how it influenced fiction and storytelling, how it revolutionized gaming, how it captivated generations. All of that will be forever etched within history, within the people, and that is something you will never be able to erase. The future of Metal Gear. Being a massive fan growing up, the Metal Gear Solid series is very important to me. It will always be one of my favorite franchises, and it will always contain a set of my favorite characters. When the Metal Gear Solid 3 remake was announced, I was happy because I would like for others to experience the series as well, in the best way possible. And so a remake will allow for that, if done right. But a part of me still feels empty inside. A part of me was filled with sorrow because I wanted the series to continue on, but without Kojima and the original team, I don't see that happening. The bitter exodus of Kojima also gave me mixed feelings with all of this. There are still so many stories within the franchise that have yet to be told, and without the original team, I don't think it will be done right. I do not believe Konami has the passion and patience to do the series justice if a new Metal Gear Solid was to come out, and I am skeptical about the remakes as well without Kojima Productions in charge. I think in a perfect world, the two sides will be able to come together once again and create the Metal Gear games for a new generation to experience, to create the best games possible, just like they always strive to do in the past. Maybe if not for the money, but for the passion of video games and storytelling. All of this seems impossible now, but a man can still dream. Kojima said himself he didn't want to continue on the series, so it's probably best for me not to keep on hoping for such a thing. Although I am happy that newer fans will get to experience the series I enjoyed so much, I am a tad bit sad because we will never get to see some of the incredible stories the series had still yet to explore. We have seen the story of Solid Snake, the legendary tale of the clone of Big Boss, but we have not yet seen the full story of Big Boss, Naked Snake. We have not seen the story of the boss, Naked Snake's mentor. We have not even seen the story of Snake's brotherly clones. Liquid was supposed to be Solid's rival. He carried the recessive genes of Big Boss, and so he held animosity towards Solid Snake, wanting to prove that he was the superior one. Their showdown could have been even more legendary if we learned more about his past and their confrontations. Plus, we barely know anything about this bozo, who just showed up at the end of Metal Gear Solid 2. We could have seen some legendary fights like Snake vs Grey Fox, two friends fighting barehanded in a minefield. Anything more about this guy who carried the series, and even more about all the brilliant characters the series had. Perhaps the greatest of moments in the series could have been a remake of Metal Gear 1 and 2, where we could have seen Solid facing off against Venom Snake and of course the big boss himself. Imagine the mixed emotions after building an empire along two legendary war heroes, Venom and Big Boss, creating an army, gathering resources and recruiting soldiers, all the hard way, and then playing as Solid Snake, the one based on the two, the Snake who started it all, and destroying what you once labored so hard to build, disposing of the army you've grown to love, and thrashing the ideals you once would have risked your life for. This could have been one of the most emotional moments in gaming if done right. As mentioned earlier, I don't think Konami has anywhere near the passion and patience to put together such a thing. Only perfectionists like Kojima and his team can do something like this. To care too much about time and money will end up delivering a subpar product, something that is not worthy of a Metal Gear title. I think I speak for most Metal Gear fans in how no one wants some half-assed cash grab attempt for the future Metal Gear games, and dare I say, maybe it is better if the series stayed dead, if that is what is in store. Having remakes and remasters may not be such a bad thing if it lives up to the Metal Gear standards, but sometimes, some things are better off if they stay dead. As for the future, I wish I could say the best is yet to come, but to be honest, I don't know what is in store for the Metal Gear Solid franchise. A series I spent so much time enjoying, just like most Metal Gear Solid fans. By the looks of it, it seems like the series will be remastered and that is it, alongside the remake. But the fact that Metal Gear is back is something I can be happy about, so rejoice Metal Gear Solid fans. All that said, I didn't mean for these videos to be sad and pessimistic. We all should be happy to be able to enjoy such a beautiful game and series once again. And the main point of this video was to pay respect to the original creators, and to let the new fans know as well how it is truly their game, despite their names likely being hidden from the future installments, and it wouldn't have been possible without them. And so, if this is the end of the Metal Gear series we've all grown to love, here's to you, Snake, all Snakes, and all the brilliant characters whom we've been blessed to see their tale unfold. If this is the last we've seen of them, then let's hope it was for the better. And finally, here's to you, Hideo Kojima, and all the legendary team members, many of which will never be in the spotlight, but they too greatly influenced the series and helped create such great memories for all of us. Your names may be erased from the present, from the future, but it is hard to change history when it is tied to our past, when it is tied to all our memories, and when it is tied to our hearts.
Show